I think we're going to sit.
Brilliant. Okie doke. Thank you for that. That was amazing. Get back on stage.
Oh. Yes.
My name is Paul Armstrong. I am incredibly sweaty, but we're going to run through that. Okay, brilliant. So, Grandpa, I'm going to stand. Water, anyone? Brilliant. So I run emergent technology advisory called Hereforth, which is out of Britain. I work with global clients around the world, bad people like Coca-Cola, just kidding, they're amazing. All the way through to 9010, which is a healthcare innovation section. I believe the reason I have been asked here today is because I write for a tiny publication called Forbes, and I like to beat people up on stage. Just kidding. I really loved all of these guys, and I was absolutely mortified that half of the people left when we were talking about the beautiful work life and that sort of stuff. So kudos for you all for staying. So hands up here who's a startup. Hands up who's an investor. Hands up who's got a hideous corporate life. Why are you all here? Brilliant. All right, I'm going to dive in because we only have 15 minutes left, and I've already used up 1 minute talking about myself, so that's no good. Oh, God, so many. Right, Rachel, I'm going to start with you. AR, VR, talk to me about practical steps, all right? What do these guys and girls have to do when they go back to really start pushing the needle on getting that into their worlds?
Depends on your outcome orientation. That's my first piece. One, understand your outcome that you're trying to drive. You can use delta and dice as two parameters. The more that those things overlap, so let's say you have a use case that is both expensive and dangerous and involves analytics, maybe there is an opportunity there. So really look to the actual problem you're trying to solve and understand how that technology is going to resolve a bottleneck or create impact that some other form of technology can't. Second, become a user. Download AR apps on your phone, try it out, learn the user experience issues so you know how to work with them in the design process. For example, I have a friend who in the early days of VR designed an app for the experience, to understand the experience of essentially being paralyzed, because it was true, you couldn't move around the space effectively when you were dealing with that technology. So he effectively worked with the constraints of the technology to create this very powerful experience. So try not to work against the UX issues, work with them. In recap, understand your use case, become a user so you understand the UX issues.
Do you think we're at a tipping point with new price points with like Oculus Go and that sort of stuff, which just came out from Facebook?
Say that one more time.
Do you think we're at a tipping point now where VR is going to become a bit more mainstream? Do you think it's going to catch up with AR? I know you're very bullish on AR, I agree.
A few factors. We all know that technology tends to proliferate military, enterprise, consumer. It's been in military for a long time. It's now having high impact in consumer. That's another thing to remember if you want to implement this technology. You're going to have more adoption in enterprise than consumer right now. VR is also 90% of the marketplace. AR will capture about a quarter of that in the next 5 years. So basically, that proliferation curve is happening. And we also know there's a digitization hype cycle process. So you have the hype cycle, the trough of disillusionment, which we've been in the last couple of years, and then steadily the technology gets better until it's at the point where it's ready to be adopted at mass and some of the main user experience issues have been solved. We are nearing that point based on the prototypes I have seen that have not been released to the market. I think we are near that. And many of the major technology companies are vying for technological leadership in this space. But it still could be anywhere from 5 to 20 years. I think it will be 10 to 15, we'll start seeing some really solid user experience issues resolved. Quantum computing will also really help, and we're a little bit ways away from that still.
Yeah. Muriel, nice to meet you. Sorry, I didn't get to see
Nice
you
to meet
before.
you.
Apologies, yes, my bad. All right, I've got to call it. I get predictions hard and that sort of stuff, but I want you to call it. Is work going to be massively disrupted or not? I saw a lot of percentage marks there where I was still shitting my pants. So whether it's 14 or 47, I don't care. It's still a lot of people out of work, right?
That's a great question. So the lowest predictions we see right now are around 8%. Those are the OECD studies. And so that's indicating, even if these are off, or maybe they're all estimations, including that one, there is change coming. Disruption is coming, and disruption is very hard for us. So that's why I hope more than anything you hear, like, these predictions shouldn't be trusted. It shouldn't have us sitting back and going, oh, this is what the future looks like, let's wait around to see that future, but actually starting to do things. So yes, I believe that if we don't start to innovate around work, we could see some dystopian outcomes. We don't have to do that, though. There's still so much to do. There's so much that we can start to intervene with that I don't think we have to get there. And that's why I'm not afraid. Now, what I am afraid for, though, are certain populations who are at the front end of this curve of change, who are most likely to be disrupted in a time when we don't have those solutions in place. Specifically truck drivers, that's a population I work closely with for that reason, but it's not only blue-collar occupations, also radiologists is an example of where we're seeing these technologies kind of hitting those populations earlier than others. Just like the Luddites and the textile movement, those are the people we need to be thinking about helping now.
Nice. That leads me quite generally on to practical steps then. Okay, what do we do? How do these people know that they're going to be disrupted and that sort of stuff? There are indicators out there. What should people be looking for?
Well, most of the people I talk to, because I interview a lot of people in those professions, they actually know this. They see this coming, and it scares them, actually not just economically, though. It scares them more of a personal, like, dignity, identity level. So when we talk about economics, it's very easy to throw around universal basic income, generalized basic income. And I think that might be part of the solution. I think that most likely is part of the solution. But I think it's very important to remember that, like, there's also that dignity and identity piece. So I think the most important thing we can do right now with those populations is show how what they already have, who they already are, can be reapplied in many, many, many domains. The more that we actually connect it to that identity, that dignity they already have. If we just say, oh, congrats, 25 years of being a truck driver is gone, you're starting from ground zero, that's not helping these people with identity, and that's not making them people who feel they actually have a foothold in their communities and want to be loving, good citizens to other people. That puts them in a scared state. So let's actually help them see the wide horizon of opportunities. Part of this means we need to know what their skills actually are, what can they actually offer, how do we actually validate those skills, how do we then reapply them. That's what my group works on every day. I think we need way more people working on that, though, if that's something you're interested in.
So we've got LinkedIn, we've got all these other bits that are buying learning companies left, right, and center. Why aren't people educating themselves?
One more time.
So you've got all linked, forget what they bought, Sylvia, something like that. And you've got lots of other learning tools out there and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Are we just all lazy bastards that we don't want to do it? What is it?
This is the easiest solution, actually. So a lot of people go and they think, okay, I need to learn skills, and they actually even know that MOOCs exist, massive online learning groups. They know this exists, but then they're not even sure which thing they're supposed to be learning first. And that's why as soon as we actually point someone in a direction, we say, with a little confidence, you can invest that precious spare time you have in learning this, they're willing to do it. It's really just actually showing those connections. I really think if anyone just wants to start a company right now, if you just figure out how to get people who are being disrupted linked to those free tools out there, just provide that link. Just crawl for that content and link it to their skill sets they need. There you go, there's your business, because we need that right now.
Yeah. Ada Marcus, lovely chat. I'm not a backgammon person, but I think I'm going to take it up after that, actually.
Sure.
Legacy, you mentioned it. It's a big word I keep hearing as well. I get to talk to some pretty smart CEOs and some less smart CEOs around the world and that sort of stuff, but half of them don't have a clue about their legacy, or they're going the other way and they're terrified of protecting it, which is stopping a lot of change and a lot of innovation coming through. How do you recommend that younger people in this audience and sort of outside really talk to older generations about leaving a legacy or getting out of the way?
Well, I'm going through that challenge every day myself. I think that, what we're talking to when the technology comes and the jobs are going to be lost and everything, but the basic thing is going back to yourself and exploring yourself and what is your input into life, and to having a conversation with a generation where they were told to do their father's job maybe, or the generation before, and not explore what they're here for. And I really don't know how to talk to them. I don't think I'm the person to answer that question. Maybe you should. Yeah, I'm in the middle of that every day, so.
Well, I don't know. My contribution might be to that, what I see you doing, actually. And it's ultimately about getting people out of their narrative. And when people are living in a world where they're living somebody else's story, that ultimately leads to cancer and all kinds of things like this, because it's something that bubbles up inside of you. So you become disengaged, you become less and less productive, you're not successful. So the key really ultimately is to kind of have everybody see their own story within the work they're doing. So when we're talking about intergenerational transfer of information or of legacy, it's about the older experienced generation also realizing that there's value to be learned from the young generation. So 3 people we have from Bilgi University that we brought from Istanbul, the university supports them, that come and learn from the things that are taking place.
So that's a good first practice.
That's a good first practice.
So bringing people who are
There
learning.
they are. Put
into
up your
it.
hands, please.
Well done, and well done. Give me some other practical steps, because I think that's a
It's
lofty...
about respect and trust. And I mean, at the end, everybody has a unique message, and just because you've been doing something possibly wrong for 30 or 40 years doesn't give you legitimacy to keep that going. I mean, the idea that repetition or 10,000 hours of doing something possibly wrong makes you an expert is not valid. So I mean, I think that there's value in freshness and a value of inexperience and a kind of amateur spirit that actually can tell us more than just our rehearsed motions.
Work it the other way, because I think that's imagining that a lot of older people, not that they're all blithering idiots and that sort of stuff, but have this massive self-awareness or epiphany moment. Talk to me about how a young person goes to their boss, you're standing in my way, get out, do something different, or like, this is your legacy, is this what you want? How do they have that chat?
It's a tricky one. I think it depends. It's very contextual. I mean, the boss, who is that boss and whatnot, but I think that the person in that situation has to have the integrity and the kind of self-respect to be able to walk away, you know, without thinking twice and find a place that they're going to connect with the right value system. So if the problem in front of you is your boss, if you can't change your boss, change what you're doing. Go somewhere else where your values are in alignment, that there's a frequency and a flow. Because otherwise your work will become fighting with your boss. So I think that it really, again, depends on the character quality and the kind of vibe that you have between people. But to actually raise the idea that that's not a fixed entity, it's something that can be massaged out through dialogue, through discussion, through being an observer. You know, you're not your work just because you're whatever. If you're a salesperson, I'm a salesperson. No, you're a human being doing a job, a specific thing. But many people identify so closely with the work that they do as a title that they don't see themselves at all within that space. So I think in both cases, whether it's a young person just starting a job with an experienced boss of whatever kind, it's about mutual respect and trust and realizing that there are many sources of knowledge and information and more than one road to success.
Okay.
May I weigh in with one thing on this?
Yeah.
So one common thread I'm seeing between what we're all saying, you reminded me of it first, Muriel, that there's a well-known quote, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I see a common thread with what Edda and Marcus are presenting, which is about self-invention. And I know in my own life, just to share a personal story of my own challenges and experience, I didn't think of myself as a leader until last year. And I really grappled with this. And I had this amazing executive coach who's like, let's make sense of this for you. And what I came to is that I have pioneered in a number of ways in my life where my father is a 6th generation Texan. And I haven't let go of that heritage. In fact, the work I do in VR and AR, I'm able to do it better because I understand what a West Texas rancher might think about this technology. And that isn't the normal user, or that's not the normal person who's working on this tech, but that's an important person to understand in terms of these factors that will be disrupted. And so one of the things that I have come to understand is that in self-inventing and in inventing the future, it can be a very lonely process because you're pioneering. And you may not belong to in-groups that you used to belong to, but you belong to yourself. And there is no more important form of belonging, because then you can scale that out and give that to other people and not give them your legacy, but give them their own legacy. Light up whatever that means for them, however they're going to creatively reinterpret what it means for them to create themselves, create the future, and create something that will work for all of us. Even if it is lonely, it actually gives you the deepest sense of belonging, I've found.
I like that. Thank you very much. Okay, if we could throw it open. Any questions? If not, I'm going to go to rapid quickfire, which they didn't have any clue about. So any question? Everyone's so tired because it's so hot in here. Okay, so I'm just going to go down the line. Down the line even. There you go. So answer it in part, just quick, snappy answers, all right? Rapid, quick fire. This always goes wrong, but anyway. Okay, what's your biggest red flag for you for a person?
Inflexible ego.
I like that. High fives, are they ever business appropriate?
High fives? Oh, all the time. They're required.
Always geographical, that one. Okay, you've got to kill one, kitten or puppy.
I stand on the 5th.
Technology you've least hoped for.
Technology I least hope for. Well, I'm open to learning, so I don't know.
Okay, we'll go for that. Facebook or Twitter?
I don't know. I have never thought about it.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Most overrated person? No, underrated person.
Oh, underrated
Let's be more
person.
positive. Go for it.
I think like the millions of people out there who aren't in our workforce.
Oh, okay. Fill in the blank. Uber is a company that needs to...
Ooh, expand humility and empathy.
Oh, I like that. Okay, you get to smell one thing for the rest of your life. What would it be?
My child smell. My daughter.
Oh, okay. Donate your body to science or organs to people?
I prefer not to die, but anyway, that's... I don't know. Beyond that, I don't care. Take what comes. Donate them. Why not?
Okay. You've got 10 minutes free. What do you do?
I'm sorry?
You've got 10 minutes free. What do you do?
Yoga. Meditate.
Okay. Who'll be the... You got all the tech ones, sorry. Who'll be the best place to work for in 10 years? Facebook, Google, Apple, or Amazon?
None of them. It will be a new disruptor.
Excellent.
Nice.
I like that. Right, we're out of time. So I'm going to say thank you to these incredibly intelligent people for giving up their time. I appreciate it, and thank you ever so much. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.